as well. So
fantastic.
I'm not saying I'm the world's expert, but my background is sprinklers, so I'm happy to, input as required.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Okay, shall we?
Okay, George, do you want to, for the new people, do you want to just, and for the old people, do a bit of an update?
Sure. Okay, so just to give you some background, we started this 4 years ago now. A number of the people that are on the call now were participated in this, but we were asked by the government to support an initiative called the Golden Thread Initiative. And the principle that we're trying to get to there, or what they're asking, was what information is actually needed. Right, thank you. Sorry, I've just been told that I'm actually sharing my screen to another meeting. so you couldn't see what I was doing there. I'm pleased that somebody's a bit brighter than me and has let me know. Apologies. So, goodness me. Trying to join the meeting. That's because I've just jumped out of one meeting into this one, so apologies. Right. I hope you'll edit that out of the recording, Richard.
No.
Yeah, so this is basically we were given responsibility for the asset and survey information, and we've held lots of roundtable workshops. And what you're going to see in terms of the documents that we're going to run through today, this morning, actually came out of that collaboration. So we had lots of people who were subject matter experts. All these people here, for example, they're all developers or clients. These people here are all manufacturers. So the point was that these people who are competitors in many ways are actually sitting around the table sharing their knowledge about various different things. And Alex is over there in the back on the operations side as well. So the result of that was that we asked the team some specific questions, like what risks does the sprinkler system, for example, mitigate? What do people do to sprinkler systems to stop them from working properly? What information's needed? What methods should be employed? What level of competence is needed? And also, how should product changes be recorded? So this is a standard methodology we did against 12 asset types, which we're going to run through, or which we're running through yesterday and today to update them. So we've actually got deep dive recommendations for all of these asset types. They've been up on the BIM4Housing website for the last 4 years, and they were all refreshed and updated in 2023. And what we're doing this week is doing the same for for all of them as well. What we've also done since then, we've added in some additional details. So, for example, we've worked with the NHS to come up with a standardized way of doing fire door inspections. And it's quite a nice document now that you can go into, and the intention here is to improve people's competency. And we've been doing the same also for fire dampers, fire stopping, and cavity barriers. So again, we've got some high quality information there. We also need to look at things from a point of view of, rather than the individual asset types, how do these things all come together? How do they work together as a collective? And Is everybody still there? Okay. Can you see my screen still?
Yeah.
Great. Sorry, something happened. I heard something go. So the way in which we're trying to do this is to give people the context, because what most people do when you ask them what information do you need, they'll say, well, it depends. And it always depends on the context. So this is a simple way of just identifying the context of a fire breaking out in a kitchen. The main goal is to stop smoke from spreading into that stairwell. How do we go about doing that? Well, the fact is that you've got a series of systems that work together. So compartmentation is a system that's made up of a number of different component parts, and all of those need to be working perfectly. You may have the best fire doors, like Harmony fire doors, for example, Matt, would be in there, but the problem then is if the penetration seals aren't right, then we've got a big problem. The same with and then you've got backup things like smoke control, detection, and signage. So all of those things need to be able to work together. And what we're doing at the moment, the success of the Golden Thread Initiative, I think, has been strong. And we've got lots of people producing golden threads, but the challenge is that they're all separate. So what we need to do is federate them. So the information may be on that door and what product was used is great, but we need to know where it is in the building and what spaces it's protecting, because that's critical from the fire perspective. And we also want to make sure that if people are using a range of different software applications to maybe do inspections, that what we're actually doing is making sure that they're all inspecting that individual asset so that we've got a proper record of it. The other thing is that Regulation 38, the fire and emergency file, we're discovering that although it's the law and people have got to provide this information, and if they don't, they're breaking the law, we're finding that in many cases, people are signing the Regulation 38 documentation and saying that they've got all the information that they need to manage the building, but actually they don't. And the same with contractors. Contractors, this has been put into building control to be able to address the fact that the information isn't high enough quality. So that's why we're trying to raise the bar with this and make it clear that in this particular case, the 5 critical assets, which is what we're trying to cover, are actually there. So one thing that we've done is looked at this from a point of view of auditing. So we've got the Golden Thread Task Force as a community. We've got over 100 people that are involved in it now. And if you're interested in becoming part of the Golden Thread Task Force and you're not already part of it, please put your name, but please put Golden Thread Task Force or Task Force in the chat, and we can introduce you to some of the other people. But the principle here is that we're trying to simplify it to make sure that we've got this basic information about each asset type. That's obviously not as detailed as we're going to go into later, but that's where we're at. I'll just mention this because I think these are the people that are already part of the task force. So you see there, we've got a mixture of client organizations, consultants, software companies, and the principle that we're trying to get to is to create a community where people with needs, like landlords, can get together with people that are subject matter experts and with tested solutions, and we can bring those things together so that we can then end up with something that then is a combination of classified libraries, so that we've got standardization in terms of how information is managed, but also a range of different software applications that are being used, all of which have already been working together. So that's our vision with this, to have software that works together and also people that know how to use the software that can then address business needs. So that's it, Richard. So should we go on to the poll?
Yes, we shall go on to the poll. Just will put into the chat. We've been doing a poll all of our forum meetings. So what we've done with this one, it's primarily focused on the guidance, the recommendation documents, to just see the validity of what we've been doing, and also to, I suppose, in a way, warm up the people who haven't actually come across the documents before. So if Jesse, have you put the link in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So if you'd all like to click on the link in the chat, which would be great if you all did that. And then we'll just go through this quick little poll. It's all anonymous.
What we're trying to do here, we've gone through the 12 asset types and we've identified the information that is critical or that's common to all of them. Yeah. So therefore, what we've tried to do here is make it so that this is a base standard that we as a community, the industry group or an industry group can actually say that you need information on, for example, type reference or location or whatever. Sorry, Richard.
Sorry, no, I'm sorry. I pushed the wrong button and I left.
Oh.
Okay, so.
Okay, so the
It's
question
probably
really is, yeah,
right.
if you are a building, if you are a contractor, what we're really trying to do here is gauge whether the industry has actually taken on board some of the basic things that were in the original guidance. So although you may be creating information, you may be receiving it, or you may be managing information, just give an answer to this that is your feel as to how the industry is working, rather than I'm not doing that at the moment. So we just want your expert view. Okay.
Okay, so does the asset information you create, receive, retain for this asset type that we're considering the asset types we're considering today, do you get, or do people in the industry get type reference, classification, and unique ID reference? And how much of the time would you get that? Or would they get it, or would you supply that? Type reference, classification, and a unique ID reference.
Okay, next.
Okay, right, let's scroll down. How often do you get precise location data, XY coordinates, possibly XYZ coordinates? How often do you get that? Okay, scroll down, Jess. How often do you find it's related to its relationship to fire strategy? How often is it related to fire strategy?
Assuming there is one.
Yeah, assuming there is one. Okay,
Well,
number
in fact,
4.
actually, that's the point. If there isn't a fire strategy, then the answer is 0.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, how often do you get manufacturer and model certification test data? How often do you get the manufacturer and model certification and test data? How often do you get manufacturer and model certification and test data? And number 5, how often do you get design, installation, and commissioning records? How often do you get design, installation, and commissioning records? Number 6, how often do you get maintenance and inspection logs, such as dates, methods, results? How often do you get maintenance and inspection logs, such as dates, methods, and results? Okay, number 7. How often do you get cause and effect matrices or system integration data for active systems? How often do you get cause and effect matrices or system integration data for active systems? Okay, number 8. How often do you get change history and traceability, such as product swaps, upgrades, replacements? How often do you get change history and traceability? Okay, number 9. How often do you get evidence of the competency of the individuals undertaking the works? How often do you get evidence of the competency of the individuals undertaking the works? And the last one. How often do you get records of works resulting from tasks identified in FRAs being completed? How often do you get records of works resulting from tasks identified in FRAs being completed? Excellent. Thank you for that. And we will be regaling you with results of that later. Okay, so let's move on now to our first guidance document. Obviously, we've got about, half an hour. We've got 2 to go through. We've got about half an hour. So we're not going to go into any huge amount of detail on this. The main reason for this is just to give an introduction to those who've not seen these before, and a reminder to those that have. Pick up a few particular points that stand out, and then hopefully anybody who wants to contribute can look and spend some time alone with the document and email through any comments you've got around anything. I don't want to tie up today too much with a lot of the answers, which are the same for each asset type. A lot of stuff that's pretty standard that I don't think we can have a lot of discussion about, or anything that's contentious. So we've got what are the components of a sprinkler system. I think we don't need to really bother with that right now. Go through, Chris. Are there any dependencies? What are the risks does sprinkler systems mitigate?
Richard, could I just say that Matt, given your experience on this, we'd welcome if you take a look at the document itself, not now.
Yeah.
But if we can share that with you, share it with everybody. And if you've got any particular suggestions to make, we're very open to that. The whole idea of this is that we're putting something out there that then can get challenged.
Yeah, I've actually had to read through the documents before the call, so I've actually got copies of both
Great.
sprinklers and dry risers. So I've got a couple of sort of suggestions, let's say, whether you want me to go through them now or prefer to
Let's
email
start.
in.
Yeah, let's start with those, Matt. Absolutely.
And again, I've gone through both documents quite carefully, so and they are really sort of well put together, so I can sort of see exactly what you guys are trying to achieve. So it's really good to see, actually. I guess the only, general point and then a specific point is I'm assuming that this is aimed quite heavily on the residential part of the industry, part of the world. I guess just a couple of things through the sprinkler document. It just feels a little bit more, it's focused on commercial sprinklers, and there is a little bit of a difference between the two, different British standard. So it may be just there might be a couple of parts where it can be some more detail can be added for the residential specifically, because obviously commercial sprinklers have been around a lot longer. The standards and the industry is a lot more mature, and you can see why people in the industry will probably focus quite heavily on commercial sprinklers. But having been involved with resi sprinklers for the last 3 years, after I've been in commercial sprinklers probably for the previous 20 odd, so most of my background is commercial. I can sort of see the differences, and I think maybe adding in a bit more specifics on resi sprinklers might just be something that can be added to the document, if that makes any sense.
It absolutely does.
Yeah, I think that's really, really helpful, because you're absolutely right that when we started this, it was in 2021, and there weren't very many sprinklers in residential blocks at that time, so I'm told. So that's certainly its major steer. So yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, and just as one example, I won't go. Obviously I can share my sort of more detailed thoughts separately, but and when you get to question 3, there's like a screenshot of an example maintenance instructions.
Just scroll down to that. Scroll down to that. Question 3, maintenance.
So, yeah, and to be fair, the document does say it's only an example, and there are several. But that there, just go back. Yeah, that screenshot on there. That's it. That is straight out of commercial sprinkler world. So when we're talking about weekly checks, diesel pumps, things like that, they don't occur in resi world per se. So this is obviously a snapshot, I think, is taken from SFG 20, which probably leans quite heavily on the commercial sprinkler standards, so BSEN 12845, whereas, as you'll know, on resi sprinklers it's a totally different British standard, 9251, and the emphasis of the maintenance in that standard is a bit different. And I'm not saying this screenshot is wrong, but it might be worth, for balance, having both in there, one from the residential side and one from the commercial side, because to be fair, there are systems out there, as you'll know, where we've got mixed use buildings. So the building, they may build a new block of flats and they might have shop units at the bottom.
Yeah,
we're coming across a lot of buildings that we're asked to maintain, which has got both commercial systems and residential systems in the same building. So I think it's still important to have reference to both, because in a lot of cases now with mixed use development, especially on new builds that we're looking at, you actually, the maintenance contractor and the end user has to be aware of both sets of standard, both sets of requirements, because otherwise they'll miss half the story, if that makes sense. But I think maybe that's one area where we could add more balance from the resi side and have like maybe a screenshot of what's required on a residential sprinkler system as compared to commercial, because the maintenance requirements are quite different. I've found over the last few years.
I think that's a really good point. And what I would like to say to everybody on the call is that we obviously did a lot of this work under BIM4Housing, but we're now applying it to BIM in asset management as well, because we think that the detail, the quality of the information that's been gathered across the board for this is actually really useful for any type of building. So I think the point that you're making there, Matt, is absolutely right, that we need to be able to accommodate both. So maybe you could help us with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but more than happy to.
Is there anything else?
That was the main one I picked out of the sprinkler document. That was probably the one that sort of stood out to me just reading through it as being in the industry. That was the bit that just jumped out. And I think there's a couple of other places where maybe we can sort of expand to include a bit more of the specifics on Resi, but that was the main one I wanted to sort of mention without sort of hogging the time and the call.
Okay, should we go back to the
Yeah.
beginning and run through them, Richard?
Yeah, we'll go back to the beginning. Right, okay, yeah. So that's what risks does a sprinkler system mitigate? So just to what risks is the system itself susceptible? Again, nothing really contentious, I think, there. It's the rest.
There's a lot of things that can go wrong, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so what information is needed about sprinkler systems to ensure they perform as required? What information? Right, just scroll down a little bit. This is again pretty uncontentious, I would imagine.
One thing I would say there is we've got location, and part of the important thing is whether you're managing the sprinkler system, the same with emergency lighting, just as a system, or whether you're managing it as an assembly of components. And I'd be interested to know people's view as to whether it's important to, for example, know where the sprinkler heads are.
Has anybody got a view on that?
I would say definitely, yeah. As-built drawings, part of the O&M pack of the installer should issue as-built drawings, and that should show not only specifically where the heads are themselves, but also what's covered. And because sometimes some areas of the building aren't covered by sprinklers, so you could have staircases that are not need to be covered because they're sterile areas, etc. So having locations of sprinkler heads and layout drawings of where the pipe work runs as well. That's another good thing to know, is if some of the pipe works run in back of house areas or areas that aren't accessible, if there is a leak or there's a problem, having those as-built drawings showing where the pipe work is as well as the heads is also an important thing.
You say it's important. Does it happen?
Speaking from the industry, any reputable contractor should be issuing that as part of their own MPAC. It's along with the design drawings of how the system was envisaged to be installed, the as-built drawings of how it actually was installed, in my opinion, are just as important, because the two can differ. Obviously, when you come to install something, you find things on site that prevent a pipe running in a certain place, so you box around or you go somewhere else. But those as-built drawings, but to answer your question, I have seen examples when we're maintaining systems installed by others whereby the as-built, they've just copied the design drawings and haven't really actually modified them. And you find that there is pipe where it's not shown on the drawings and vice versa. So I'm not saying at all the industry is perfect on that. I think it needs to be, I think as-built drawings is an area where it can be definitely improved.
I think the other point on that is that it's great if we've got that as a set of drawings. The challenge is that people lose drawings,
yeah,
and they lose documents, and also they're not easy to keep up to date. So if changes take place and all you've got is a PDF or indeed an image, then that's something that then doesn't get kept up to date. So one of the things that we are promoting is that this information should be properly digital, properly machine readable, so that the location of things is actually a proper XYZ coordinate. Because if you don't, then you're relying on somebody's ability to read a drawing and interpret it properly, and people will interpret it differently. So that's one of the things we're trying to push for. Also, there's lots of applications that don't have the ability to hold the drawing. So you need the location to be able to do that, both as a space. Anyway, Sorry, Richard, carry on.
All right. Yeah, that was your that was your get out of jail free one.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, right. Okay.
Richard.
So,
Sorry, mate. I've just got a quick observation, and
yeah,
I don't know if
brilliant.
it's relevant. I'm no sprinkler expert, and as you know, I work on the new build side of life. When it comes to commissioning certificates, the information that typically we pass to our asset colleagues, we do give them the commissioning certificates, and we can give them the design flow rates. What the feedback that we've had is quite often the commissioning certificates don't actually record the actual flow rates that were achieved. And from what I understand, that's an important piece of information when it comes to signing off the system when it's being maintained. So when it comes to saying we need commissioning certificates, I think we need to be we can be a bit more specific about exactly what data we need those commissioning certificates to record.
Right. So should we put commissioning certificates including flow rates?
Well, someone else who's a bit more expert than me might be able to tell you the exact terminology, but that feels right.
I think
the commissioning certificates and the flow rate should be part of the design, the O&M. So the commissioning certificates are basically the acceptance, commissioning, installation, and acceptance certificates. The design, installation, commissioning, acceptance certificates. But the flow rate should come as part of the O&M.
Yeah, the flow rates should be annotated in the commissioning documentation. That's my understanding of it also.
I think also, as per David's point, this commission certificate or the documentation should show what the requirement is, so what the design duty is, and also what the actual test results are. Because not only does that give you a clear indication that it has passed its commissioning tests, which you could argue should be the case if they're giving you a certificate. They shouldn't be giving you a certificate that shows it failed, but it's still important. But also from a maintenance long-term point of view, even if it passed at commissioning, if you know what the actual results were, you can see any deterioration over time. So if over the first 10 years the water supplies, the pumps are deteriorating, they may still be a pass every year, but if they're getting closer and closer to a fail, then comparing it to those original actual results on commissioning is very useful, because you can see the rate at which it's deteriorating and then take action before you fail your flow test on an annual basis.
Okay, so
I think,
on the basis of what we're doing here, our list here, do we add what you're saying into commissioning certificates, or do we put it underneath?
I think separate. I would like to see it on the commissioning certificate, because that's the document that people are going to refer back to, I think.
Right.
It will also be in the design drawings, and it'll be in several places. The hydraulic calcs will show it, for instance, what the design duty is. But this is the only place that you're probably going to capture the actual results on the point, at the point of commissioning.
So we've got commissioning certificates, which should include what?
So I would call it, my terminology, and everyone might have an opinion, but I would call it the design duty and actual flow and pressure results.
Design duty.
Yeah, so that's what it should, mate. And then the actual flow and pressure results. Yeah.
And pressure test results.
I think so. Again, you could call it different things, but I think sprinkler people would sort of know what that means.
Anybody disagree with that?
I'm just going to add, basically, what we require is, as per the relevant standard. That's what from the compliance and from a client side of things we're working towards. So the 9251 standard requires leakage test, hydraulic test, and alarm test to be also provided. So I think that so the leakage test, hydraulic test, and the alarm test. So the three tests that are needed.
So would we put that as additional to what we've got there already? That's what we actually do as an additional documentation. Yeah. So including
the flow and pressure test is a hydraulic test. So you could you might be better to call it a hydraulic test actually.
Yeah, that's
a good shout.
Yeah, that's I was trying actually to get to that point. Maybe the flow test is just part of the hydraulic test. And also just to mention, apart from this, I cannot see that system label. I mean, I'm sorry, but I cannot actually see any system label, the system data label
Yes.
in the in this
I was going to say
list.
the same actually. That's an important thing, is to have the data labels on the pumps and the valve sets. So if you don't have the O&M
scroll up
manual,
to the
you can get
top.
back to it.
Scroll up, Jess, and just see if we haven't got that. No, scroll up to the bottom. So that's the commission label, you're saying it's called?
No, it's a system data label that should be attached to the actual sprinkler valve on each floor. But this data label is what we also require as part of the documentation, commissioning and the documentation provision. So we have that.
Just scroll up
label.
Scroll up a little bit. We'll put that under maybe put it under model number, because it's kind of related to what's on the actually attached to the thing. So tell me the terminology again, please, somebody.
System data label.
System data label.
Yeah. You can put in brackets a label or not. What I'm gonna do, sorry, I'm just gonna put it in the chat. 1 second.
That's perfect, Pancho, putting it in the chat, because we get it right then.
Just in brackets, yeah. Yeah, I've got it. Thank you.
And just to take it out of the chat. There we go.
This level of detail is really important, and in fact, when we had the first pass at this, we had, I don't know, David, if you were in there when we were going through it originally, but the sprinkler guys that were on were saying one of the big problems that you have is where you've got metal pipes, and if it's a dry system, it gets filled with water to test it, but then to actually empty the water out again, there's always residual water in there. So what people have done, or were doing, was using oxygen to blow that water out, to pump it out. And the problem with that is that some of the water then still remains, and it oxidizes and it causes leaks. So the next time you try and use it, everything leaks. So that was one of the things. And the second is, if you don't use metal and you use plastic, you've got to make sure that you've got the right mastic, because otherwise the mastic can react and then cause leaks as well. So I mean, that's my very limited amount of knowledge that I gained from it. But I thought that was most of the people on the call, when the expert was talking about that, had no knowledge of that at all. And yet, they've got sprinklers in their buildings.
Yeah, we've had a lot of issues with the wrong mastics being applied to pipe work, and we know very specific in our contracts as to the compatibility of mastics. So hopefully that's a problem that will go away.
Yeah, but it's only when these sorts of things, when we can communicate in this sort of way, that I think that's not something naturally your procurement people or whatever would know about, is it?
No, our residents let us know because their flats were getting wet. So,
well, I think you kind of make the assumption, if you're employing a professional installer for anything, that they know the best way of doing it. I mean, to use mastic that is incompatible in some way with the job is it's bloody incompetent, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those devils in the detail issues, but in theory you're right. But yeah, as I say, it's pretty well known, I think, now.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's an issue that's no longer relevant.
Well, we had long conversations yesterday on competence and how that is measured and how you then assess it, whether you're assessing it against some sort of industry or some sort of scheme, but the schemes are often actually not managing the individuals, they're actually monitoring the company, and therefore the individuals may well not be competent, and you're highly reliant on the quality of the supervision to make that work. So yeah, carry on, Richard.
Okay, so unless anybody has got anything else, Claire, thank you for those. Obviously, very much. By the way, just see if anything else stands out at you. Look, we've got type of mastic on there. Scroll down, Jess. Okay, tasks. What tasks are required to ensure sprinkler systems are installed, commissioned, inspected, and maintained properly? Okay, so let's scroll down a bit and see what we've got.
What's really important here, Matt, if you're knowledgeable about this, whether those references and standards are still current.
Yeah, I mean, there are links to BAF's website by the look of it, which presumably bring up documents that are up to date. It might be worth listing specifically in this section the actual standards that apply. So commercial sprinklers and residential sprinklers. It might just be worth, rather than having links to documents, it might just be worth, as well as the links as well, as like specifically list them out, possibly. And then, as I said earlier, have an example taken from 9251 about the maintenance requirements for resi sprinklers alongside the screenshot on the next page that's commercial sprinklers, and then it should tie up quite nicely.
So if
I'd be quite
if you
happy
could,
to send something around for that. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, Jess, scroll down a bit. All right, with that. All right, this is that. Yeah. Okay, competency stroke training needs to be in place. Now, most of these on all the documents are pretty much the same, but obviously there are certain asset types that do get more specialist installation training. One of the things certainly we recommend here is manufacturer-led training. And any comments on the training competency discussion?
Just a question from me, George. The point you were making about the reliance on supervision, as part of all of these standards, is there a limit to the number of operatives that one supervisor ought to be overseeing? Is that, if you're on a small site, it's fairly straightforward. If you're on a large site, I don't know if that's within the standards or whether it's something that should be given some consideration to. I don't know.
It's that's absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head, actually. With a lot of people have been complaining, for example, about BM4Housing.
Yeah.
For example, because my understanding is that a BM4Housing supervisor, it's only the supervisor that needs to be qualified. What's that mean? Trained, I guess.
Yeah.
And they then can supervise up to 20 operatives.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the feeling with the groups yesterday was, in fact, both of them said that wasn't a valid way of measuring competency.
It's not robust enough.
No.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that the approved schemes, I mean, there was a LinkedIn chat yesterday that I noticed that people were talking about whether you need to notify when a fire door is being repaired. And there's a wide range of, notify the regulator, that is. There was a wide range of differing views as to whether that was the case. And, it's interesting that we've still got that situation where it's unclear.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it is unclear. People just don't like the answer. seems to be in place. But yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, do you know of any, Matt or anyone else? Do you know of any? Because it's quite interesting. Yesterday, there was a lot of the queries that were coming up. One of the guys on the team, Paul White, was actually working with one of the big trade associations related to fire and smoke dampers, and they were putting together some amazing documents. So there was a lot of stuff on sort of out there that was soon coming through. Also some regulations which were coming in but weren't there yet. But so we can't really put it on here because it's future. And things that were going out. I mean, is there anything like that any of you are aware of? Any initiatives you're aware of that is coming through with anything, or any regulations that are going to be amended or changed over the next year or so that could be relevant?
I think probably the one to mention. So first of all, to answer the previous point, there's no equivalent that I'm aware of, no equivalent specification to say how many operatives can work under a supervisor in sprinkler world. So neither LPS 1048 or 1301 have that. Obviously, on the BM trial side, it's that 20-to-1 ratio is actually embedded in it. There's nothing that I'm aware of on sprinkler world for that. Obviously, companies have to be able to manage their people properly and demonstrate to the LPC that they have got adequate supervision, but I don't believe there's an actual ratio specified.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you on that?
Yeah,
so this supervisor, is he accredited to supervise, or is he accredited to do the installation? Because they're totally different skills.
They are. So our supervisors don't install, they're pure supervisors, but there are companies out there that the supervisors will do the work as well. Definitely, I've seen that.
But will the supervisor know how to? He'll presumably know how to do the installation, won't he? If he couldn't supervise.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then they're normally ex-installers, or they've progressed, they've been promoted to supervisor level, and they generally fit as in the industry. The other thing I wanted to mention is that LPS 1048 has just gone through an upgrade, or they've released, I think it's version 6 recently, because what the LPC are doing is they're going to eventually going to phase out LPS 1301. So 1301 is purely or specifically for companies that do residential sprinklers, whereas 1048 was traditionally the commercial sprinkler companies. They're actually merging it all into 1048, and having 10 different scopes within 1048. So one of those scopes will be residential sprinklers, one will be commercial sprinklers, and also for the first time under the LPS 1048 scheme, they're going to start accrediting for wet risers, dry risers, fire hydrants, and other active systems, all within the umbrella of 1048. So there's some quite big changes happening as we speak. So, for instance, Harmony Fire are accredited to 1301 at the moment because we're a pure residential sprinkler company. That's our market. But at some point next year, we'll be merged into 1048 and 1301. Eventually, I think we'll go. So I think we need to. And I say you can't really put it in the document because it's future state. But it's just probably to mention that is happening, and that will bring some. I think that will bring some improvements, because I think as part of this new version of 1048, there's a big drive to increase the industry's competency, and rather than, I think someone said it earlier, rather than just accredit the company with that status, it's almost proving that the individual employees within that company are competent themselves as individuals. A bit more like what BM4Housing tries to do. So I think there will be some improvement in that, looking at the new version of 1048, but it is still a work in progress. So it's probably something that's going to happen over the next year or two. So I thought I'd just mention that as well.
No, absolutely. No, it's good to know what's coming down the road, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so let's scroll past that onto anything specific on maintenance. Yeah, scroll past that now, Jess. And question 5 about change management, how change is recorded. Anybody got anything on that?
I think it's something that can definitely be improved. I think, as someone said earlier, it's great having an O&M manual for a system that's been installed. First of all, you've got to make sure that's actually available to anyone who needs to see it, because generally speaking, certainly with social housing providers and councils that we work for, access to that O&M is sometimes quite difficult if we've not been an installer, if we're then maintaining it. And also, if something changes, it's very rare that those as-built drawings or the building drawings get upgraded or updated. I mean, generally you'll have the original as-builts and then copies of service certificates saying what's been done over the years, remedial works wise. But unless you've got all those documents and you read them all together, it's very difficult sometimes to know what's happened to that system over its lifespan. It can look a lot different in 10 years' time than it did when it was installed. If premises have been knocked around, if they've built new, they've built new rooms or they've changed the layout of the building, that very rarely gets updated. So that's probably something that, as part of the golden thread, is quite important. And I don't think the industry is that good at it at the moment.
That is a very high profile, weak area for us, speaking as a HA, that record keeping, the maintenance logs, who did what, did when. Yeah, it's a massive, massive gap for us. That's speaking personally.
Who's supposed to do that? Is that because you've got contractors that are providing that service and you're not getting the records back off them, John, or is that
our maintenance and upkeep are done with our compliance teams? But the asset and compliance teams are one kind of two groups within the one entity, if you like. And I working on the assumption the compliance teams, if for instance they're replacing component parts or making alterations too, then it would be for them to update the asset information via the asset team, if that makes sense. So that the records.
So it's not contractors that are doing the work and then feeding the information back to you. It's your own people.
Sorry, it is. Yeah, it is maintenance contractors doing the work. But those records, where I've been involved in it, the contractors are passing that information back to us. They're saying this is a faulty engineer's report, for instance, following a request, and we've replaced components X, Y, and Z. And that information isn't being recorded, or the R&Ms or the scheme information being updated accordingly. And
well, one of our comments or requirements and suggestions, number G, says more onus needs to be put on the client during the collation of information requirements and the updating of design models into as installed content suitable for asset facilities management. David, do you think that's right? There should be more onus on you?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm understanding the context, Richard, to be honest.
What I was referring to was during after handover and the data, the maintenance of the asset.
Yeah,
I think this relates to the actual end of the build process and handover to the client. But yeah, I think, like it or not, I do think, and this Pancho can correct me, that I took a different view to this. Some of my colleagues were saying, okay, no, it's down to the contractors to supply us as the client with the information. And I was adamant. I said, no, as a client, we need to be satisfying ourselves. Are we comfortable with that information? Have we been furnished with everything we need to ensure the safety and maintenance and upkeep of this asset? So it is for the client. It is ultimately for us. We can't. Gone are the days that we can rely on. Well, as say me as a client, as a HA on a Section 106, for me to say no, sorry. Well, I didn't. The contractor told me the sprinklers were there, but sorry, no, I didn't check that they were actually installed. You can't do that. Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
Could I just reinforce that? One of the main things that we're trying to do with the whole Regulation 38 initiative is to clarify, make it clear from an industry perspective that the information that is required under Regulation 38 is what's required going forward. Now, the reason I'm saying that is the fact it's asked for suggests to me that it's needed. And therefore, that is something that should be a baseline prerequisite for any building owner to ensure their building is safe. So they should have that information. When I've questioned the HSE on this, they've said, well, it depends really. It's the responsibility of the responsible person to see if they think they need that information. Now, I understand why they're saying that, because they don't want to take the responsibility. But as an industry, I think and particularly the asset management world, they need to recognize that this information about, what the specification of compartmentation is and things like that is important to onwardly maintain. So that's what we're trying to do with the golden thread. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, that's why we came up with the Regulation 38 checklist, because we were tired of having conversations with developers coming up to handover about the information we actually required. Because they were always telling us, "Oh no, that's an origin requirement. It's not necessary for compliance. It's not legally required," and we had to almost educate some of them. Well, Pench and myself, we pulled together a briefing document as to what a Regulation 38 was and where it existed within the approved document.
And that, as you know, John, I've been very complimentary about that. We've had similar documents from quite a few different social landlords, and yours was by far and away the the best one. But the important point that I'm making is that a lot of people think that's only at project handover, and it's not. That should be what is the standard for the information that's needed through the life of the scheme.
We put that, for instance, now on Section 106, when we're pulling together development agreements at the very at the negotiation stage, even before we've committed, we put that in the contractual documents, because that exercise, that task, if you like, has to start then, day one. It can't. I know how hard Pencho and the team work on every scheme, having to try and collate and check all that information literally 4 weeks before handover, when in reality it's months of work to check and scrutinise.
And that's what we're trying to streamline a little. And the point I'm making, sorry to press on it, but we are talking about asset management here as well. The asset management side of things, the responsibility should be on the FM organisation to make sure that that information is kept up to date. And in many cases, they've no idea about it. I talk to the big FM companies, and they've no understanding of Regulation 38 at all. Anyway, let's press on.
Anyway,
just to add, for the high-rise building, that Regulation 38 is once handed over, that becomes essentially golden thread. So we need to maintain the information for the whole, for the whole life cycle of the buildings. It's not just, it should not sit there. And any amendments or any new information that should be again fed into that database.
Absolutely.
Okay, right. Jess, do you want to? I think we've done with this one. Do you want to go on to the next guidance? Yeah, that's all. Okay, mate. Yeah, go on to the next one. There we go. Dry and wet risers. Okay, we'll assume that we know what they are. and what they're scroll down, Jess, and what they're there for, what they're susceptible to. Yeah, keep going. Okay, so what information is needed about dry or wet riser systems to ensure they perform as required? A lot of that is going to be standard, such as manufacturer, model number, XYZ. Now, what you added in, I think, I can't remember, I think it might have been Pencho for the last one. Is that relevant here?
I would say for a wet riser, you'd want the same design and actual results from the hydraulic test, because you're going to be flow testing the pumps, and you're going to do your top of stack flow test as well. So that bit's that bit is definitely should be in here. What you don't need though, you don't need that. You don't need the data labels.
Basically, to copy that over. But there was something we put at the top, wasn't it? It was to do with labeling.
Yeah, you wouldn't need a data label per floor, for instance, on a wet riser, because the standard says what flow and pressure you need as standard. It's they're not individually calced.
Yeah.
So that would be fine. And a dry riser is very much less complicated anyway, so you certainly wouldn't need it on a dry riser. But yeah, the commissioning certificate part with the flow and pressure test results is apparent relevant to a wet riser.
I have the hydraulic
Put a note, Jess,
calculations
that's for wet risers, not dry risers. The hydraulics. For when we do that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, just so we know when we chop around with that. Right, wait a minute. Where it says minimum flow rates design and achieved, would that be covered by the hydraulics bit?
Yeah, so the flow rate design and achieve. Sorry, yeah, that is actually K is saying the same thing effectively. We're just saying in the sprinkler version, we just said we wanted that recorded on the commissioning certificate explicitly, I think. So that maybe that combine that wording together.
Okay.
The only thing I'd also add, if we can, under point N for Norman. So location of connection points and drain down points. I'd also add to that for a dry riser. I think we should have a recording of the location of the air release valve, because that typically
location of
air release valve. So at the top of a dry riser, you have an ARV that lets.
This is for dry risers.
Yeah, that's just for dry risers. That's right. Sometimes it can be on the roof or it can be boxed in, and if you can't find it and get to it, it can cause a problem if it starts to let by. We see that quite a lot.
Yeah.
Do we need an O&M? Because basically an O&M for the dry/red riser, you should have pretty much the whole design information about who is installing what, maybe warranty and that kind of stuff.
Well, I think you'll find we've got that lower down. Yeah, we've got warranty there. Look, installer, installation date, warranty.
I think Pencho's saying, should we have an O&M manual for a wet riser and a dry riser?
Oh, right.
As in a whole, which I would agree with. We should certainly issue one for both. I guess any system really, but certainly for these.
Well, yeah, everything should have O&M manuals, shouldn't they?
Yeah. And it does pull together some of this information higher up, but I think it's probably good to make it explicit.
Yeah. So Jess, that O&M manual one needs to go on all of the guidances. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Do you want to scroll down and see what else we've got? Right. Now, go back, Jess, and make a note of that needs to go in everything, just so because I'll forget. Great, mate. Okay, so tasks to ensure dry and wet risers are installed, commissioned, inspected, and maintained properly. Right, installation, they're talking about the current British standard. Anything new coming out or come out that is relevant to that?
Not that I'm aware of. It's a pretty mature standard 9990, so it's I think
Bedded in.
yeah, it's been around for a while, different versions obviously, but yeah, it's not like you haven't got that difference between resi and commercial either. It's effectively the same. A wet riser and a dry riser is the same for any building, which makes it a little simpler.
Yeah. Okay, commissioning, scroll down. Right, while BS 9990 requires only that the system be pressure tested, it is BAFSA's view of industry best practice that all wet and dry risers should initially be static pressure tested to at least 1.5 times the system's predicted maximum operating pressure. All cool?
Yeah, I tend not to disagree with BAFSA by habit.
Okay, fair enough.
To be fair, that 1.5 time is taken from the sprinkler industry, where traditionally, certainly on commercial metal pipe sprinkler systems, you would do that. So I think what they're saying there is, if you're doing it for sprinks, why wouldn't you do it for dry rise and wet rise? So I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, okay. Anything else down there? So that checking, pressure testing, flow rates in there, look. That's all pretty. Yeah, scroll down, Jez. Responsible person's duties. Yeah, scroll down. Right, that's that thing again, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
I think they've taken the version
that's
out of SFG 20, but I would very much looking at it. It looks like it's taken straight out of 9990 anyway, so it'll be the same.
Right, okay, so that's going to be. It's recommending the following tests are carried out in that valves.
Yeah, this is actually lifted from 9990, I think.
Is it? Okay, yeah.
It looks like even the typeface looks exactly the same. So that they've obviously incorporated that.
So
and
that's all
again,
gonna-
there's only one standard and it's quite mature, so it would be recognised by everyone.
Yeah, we don't need to. Yeah, absolutely. So if that's already in there, we don't need to mess with it, do we?
No.
Okay, scroll down, Jess. Okay, we're back on the competency. Do we know of any particular or new training? Anything in for dry wet risers relevant?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, again, it's a BAFE, it's SP 105. It says there is the scheme, which reputable companies are accredited to. I don't know of any changes.
Yeah, SDI 24, I think it was the only scheme I know for the dry wet wet risers. SDI 24.
SDI 24. Right, so this is a training scheme.
Yeah. Competency, yeah.
Oh, okay. We haven't got that, have we? Scroll down, just have we got it somewhere else? No, we haven't. Could you put that in the chat for me, Pencho?
I think that's the IFC scheme thing, isn't it?
IFC scheme for
whereas the BAFE one is SP 105 is the one I'm aware of. That's the BAFE scheme, which that's the one I've heard of. But yeah, I think there is an IFC scheme as well by the looks of it.
Yeah, would you put that in the chat for me, Pencho? Then we won't miss it and we can pick it up, because we might as well put it in there, hadn't we?
I just did, yeah.
Thanks,
Are
mate.
IFC and BASF two competing organisations, or?
I think IFC is run by Kiwa, who are big consultants in the industry. BAFE is obviously by BAFE, and then you've got the LPC that offer the sprinkler accreditation, so 1048 and 1301. So you've got, I think BAFs would probably sit separately to all of them, if that makes sense, as a sort of more of an industry body, representative body. But yeah, the IFC schemes, the BAFE schemes, and the LPC schemes, I guess, compete for companies to be credited to. Yeah, obviously, you can be credited to more than one of them. You can have more if you really want to. But yeah, I think that keyword is the guys that run the IFC schemes.
Yeah.
Just put a screenshot so you can see all other schemes. So the SDI 24 is for dry wet risers, but they pretty much have cover for all the active and passive fire safety measures. Pretty much.
Yeah,
I mean, not all, but
22 and 23 are sprinklers, aren't they? So you got resi sprinklers and commercial sprinklers, 22 and 23.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Scroll down, Jess. Right, we're back on the change management.
Sorry, can I just ask, Richard, can I just ask a question of what Pensho's put up there? So those are the IFC schemes, are they, Pensho?
Yeah.
And my understanding is that, because I know there's been a lot of discussion about what's an approved scheme, so that you don't have to notify the regulator. But to my knowledge, there are no approved schemes that would get you around the fact of notification. Is that your understanding as well, Matt?
Yeah. We have to go for gateway 2 approval on any high risk building, for instance, to put sprinklers in.
Yeah.
Even if you're LPC approved, IFC approved, BAFE approved, yeah, it doesn't get you out of that gateway 2 application for installing sprinklers on a high risk building.
And under what circumstance, with repairing something or maintaining them, under what circumstance would you say that? Because there's this discussion about fire doors as to whether you need to notify, which the jury seems to be out on that.
Yeah.
How would that fit with sprinklers? Or, I mean, dry risers, you probably wouldn't need to fix.
On sprinklers, we haven't come across a situation where we've had to do a notification on any of the repair or remedial works that we do typically. I guess if the building was modified to a large degree and you're extending or changing the coverage of the sprinklers, it would. But then again, to modify the building itself, it probably goes through a gateway 2 application, so it'd be wrapped into the same one, I would think. But no, on the repair side of things, we haven't come across a situation where it's been thought that it needs BSR approval.
Okay.
And there won't be. I can't think of many scenarios where it would, because you're effectively replacing like for like mostly. Even if you're replacing a set of sprinkler pumps, you're taking one out, putting one in, so you're not really changing a massive amount.
I think that's the same for us. I think the replacing component parts like for like, there was no need for a notification. But I think if you're making changes that impact or relate to the original approved fire strategy for the building, for the scheme, then that's something else. But again, that would be a radical change.
Is there a relationship between, say, the sprinkler system and any other systems?
Yes.
Like it would be maybe connected to the fire alarm system?
Yes, most definitely. It's all part of the cause and effect strategy for the scheme, the fire strategy for the scheme. Most definitely.
So if you change the fire alarm system,
the way it typically works is if a sprinkler system is connected to the fire alarm, it's effectively an output from the sprinklers into an input on the fire alarm. So if the sprinklers activate, it puts the fire alarm panel into fire and potentially calls the fire brigade or do all the cause and effect stuff on the fire alarm system. But the systems do work independently other than that. So the sprinklers are the sprinklers and the fire alarm is the fire alarm. I guess if you were changing the coverage of the sprinkler system or the fire alarm system, there could be an impact on the other from a fire strategy point of view. If you're changing the type and scale of the fire alarm system, it might impact sprinkler protection. You might want to improve your sprinkler protection, but on a day-to-day basis, that the only interaction between the two system types are, as I say, if sprinklers activate, they will send an alarm signal to the fire alarm. the fire alarm wouldn't ever go the other way, though. You wouldn't have a fire alarm system setting off the sprinklers unless it's a very specific type of sprinkler system called a pre-action system. But that's probably a little bit esoteric for this. But yeah, that's the way it usually is set up.
Okay. Just for your information, this might be a useful thing from your perspective. I was on a panel a couple of weeks ago with that Dame Judith was talking at, and she was talking about a particular scheme, and I may have conflated this with the student accommodation project that was delayed, or not delayed. It's been seems to have been canned. But she was saying that the sprinkler system that had been put in, it was it was only the pump that was used could only pump up to floor 13, and it was a 20-floor building. And the that she said that the person that actually installed the pump was aware of the fact it wasn't adequate.
Really? Yeah, that's bad.
How does that happen? Oh, God.
That wasn't a Harmony Fire installation, I can assure you.
No, sure.
But no, I've seen it. You know, we've seen it happen. You know, you got people, certainly in residential sprinklers, because there was a big expansion of the market, obviously after Grenfell, and when Wales said that every house has got to have sprinklers. I think Scotland have now said any new build house has got to have sprinklers. It just drew a lot of non-sprinkler companies into the market, effectively plumbers putting sprinklers into buildings that were just not in any way qualified to be doing it. And we're now going around servicing some of this kit and finding it's got no chance of meeting its design flow and pressure tests. You know, you've got wrong type of pumps, or even trying to feed off town's main supplies that aren't adequate. So there's a lot of systems out there that need rectification because it's been designed and installed by people that were nowhere near competent. But I think it relates to that big opportunity that people saw, that suddenly residential sprinklers became a big topic and everyone dived into the market. So I think there's a lot of work over the next few years is putting some of that right, because we're still finding systems out there that bear no resemblance to what they should do from a performance point of view, put it that way.
We've had schemes come through new business, small redevelopments on areas where the individual dwellings have had residential sprinkler systems, well, designed, ready, but we ascertained early on that there was an inadequate water pressure coming to the scheme to let them work, if ever they were activated, to let them work effectively.
Yeah.
So as you say, it's a big draw. It's where's the money, isn't it? If the market is there, yes, and it attracts
cowboys, let's say.
That's the ones on horse. They come in on horseback.
They do, yeah, and they go away quickly in horseback as well.
This is the truth. That's the truth of it. So as a landlord, now as that's something now we have to scrutinise, even at the new business stage, even at that stage, have to say, okay, what you've specified, what your design, is it actually achievable?
And also, I think the needs factor, especially if they're running off town's main supplies, is over the years, as more housing goes in or the areas develop further, that town's main pressure and flow potential drops. You know, a lot of water companies have turned down the pressure in their town's mains to reduce their leakage, because it's an easy way of bringing their leakage figures down. Certainly in London and places like that suddenly a sprinkler system that was meeting its requirements 5 years ago no longer does, because the flow and pressure of the town's main is not what it was. So you've got to future-proof it as well, you know, by assuming that if they build another housing estate down the road, they're going to have less supply. So town's mains are real, especially in residential world, town's main supplied systems are got to be considered very carefully. In commercial sprinklers, they've pretty much stopped doing town's main systems now. Any new build now is generally pump and tanks, or worse, a booster pump. So, but in resi world, there's still a lot of town's main supplied systems going in, certainly on small houses, smaller developments. That is a risk, I think. But
that's what we did. We found on flatter developments, we'd insist that, I think it was a category 4 installation where it's tanked, so that we know there's adequate water resource on the site, rather than the reliance on, mains pressure.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, the other, just finishing off on that, the other thing I was told recently is there's a major problem now with data centers. So, for example, Tesla or Musk has put in a data center in Arizona, I think it is. I mean, why on earth you do it there? But anyway, and it's taking so much water out of the local community that everybody's water pressure has just disappeared.
Yeah, I think it's for the cooling, isn't it? They got to keep these things cool, and they're all water cooled these days. So that's going to be a big thing as they start building a lot of data centers in the UK. I think Northeast is going to be a big area for new data centers, isn't it? They're talking about. So yeah, Northumberland Water will have to get their get some bigger pumps. I think some more reservoirs. I think.
Brilliant. Okay. So are we about there, Richard?
Sorry?
Are we about there? Sorry.
We are there. I just want to just scroll through the rest of this just quickly and see if anything jumps out, which you probably won't because we covered this, the change management in the last one. Okay, that's it. Good, great. Thank you very much. George, have you got anything you want to cover?
Yeah. So what I wanted to say is where we're going with this. What we're trying to do is take the guidance that we've got and turn it into something that's a bit more consumable, because we've got fantastic detail here, but people haven't got the time to read things, and also there's cross relationship between them as well. So what we're doing is we're going to be using some AI over the next few weeks to basically interpret this information. And what we want to do is have the experts that we're here just to make sure that we're not losing stuff that is critical. The other thing that we want to do is to encourage people that are interested to join us in the Golden Thread Task Force community to actually do some paid work. So our logic with this, as I was saying earlier, is if we've got people who are experts and they know how to solve problems, problem solving. A lot of people at the moment are experimenting with ChatGPT and coming up with solutions, but they're not quite sure where to go with that, and also how it pulls together with other things. So what we're trying to do is look at setting up some sort of community where people can come to it with an idea and tie into people that have got AI expertise to actually turn that into something that is coming up with a joined up solution. So if you're interested in joining that next step, as it were, that next stage in taking the guidance and turning it into something that is more automated, then please put your name in the chat or put
next stage in the chat.
Next stage. I'll get that
next
right.
Stage in the chat.
The other thing that we're doing is we're looking at this from a point of view of creating some agents or roles, because what we're thinking is that if we've got, like John was saying earlier, he's got a compliance team within his organization, but he's also got a repairs team, and they've got, there's obviously the development team, and there's various different groups, all of which need different information for different purposes. So our vision with this is to get those different roles created as agents, which can then look at all of this complex data and identify where the weaknesses are, or make the connections that you wouldn't normally be able to do, or the experts would be able to do, but we're losing people from the industry that have got that expertise. So if we can train some technology to be able to support people, that's what we want to do. And with the how we fund the work is the next stage in the process. But we think if we can bring together the community, and then we've got people that, as I say, understand what the problem is, have got some ideas as to how the problems can be solved. These are all mini exercises, and then we can glue those together. So if you're interested, then put next stage and we'll have that conversation.
Excellent, excellent. And quite possibly, anybody who's put next stage in the chat will quite possibly get a message about having a quick 15-minute chat to get a better steer on that. Unless anybody's got anything else. Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed. We've got some very good stuff in there. Matt, if you wouldn't mind having a flick through those, that would be very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. Okay, guys, thank you again, and see you. Well, I hope you're all coming to the forum in October. For anybody who's not in the meeting in 2.5 hours' time, we will see you then.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.